Up until now, we have looked at pre-writing skills and other important elements of handwriting. In this video, we'll now look at the different steps taken to teach handwriting. Learning to write and form letters correctly is a skill that all learners need to master. And with every skill, there are different levels of accomplishment that learners need to go through in order to master letter formation. The first stage is tracing letters. Now, tracing letters is where learners use their pencil to trace over a letter. And because there's a large amount of guidance and support, the learner gets immediate feedback. So they can see in front of them if they have traced incorrectly over the shape. The next stage is to copy letters. After tracing letters, learners move on to copying them. And copying requires a greater use of recall and memory to write the letters. The next stage is writing with cues. And these are usually cues to help learners with the starting point for a letter, and then they will have to complete the letter by themselves without any other visual prompts. And then lastly is to be able to write without any cues. And this is where letter formation has become automatic, and young learners begin to write more fluently, which we know is one of the major aims of teaching handwriting. Handwriting instruction needs to be explicit. And what that means is it needs to be obvious, clear, and exact. Now, the only way we can achieve this is through strategic planning. Teachers need to plan to teach handwriting effectively. Now, remember, learners will not learn how to write different letters just by being exposed to the written text. They won't just catch it. They need to be taught it explicitly. Let's look at some elements to consider when planning your handwriting lessons. Now, the first is feedback, and immediate feedback is ideal when it comes to handwriting. If a learner is forming a word incorrectly, you want to be able to correct them as soon as possible, right then and there, to prevent them from cementing these bad habits. Now, as all teachers know, immediate feedback is very difficult to do if you are teaching an entire class at once. It's just physically impossible to supervise all learners at the same time. So an option could be to save activities that require your supervision for shared or guided writing time where your learners are working in smaller groups. You need to make sure that you plan for explicit teaching time. And it's also important to remember to pair the level of supervision needed with the correct mode of teaching. So when you are introducing new letters, you will need to supervise and guide learners a lot more. So it's easier to do this in guided writing time or smaller groups. Then as the learner masters letter formation, they require less supervision. Then you can use more whole class writing time activities or independent writing time activities. And lastly, don't forget when you are planning your handwriting lessons to use a multi-sensory approach.